Welcome to Economic News Desk. For July 22, 2026, we are tracking a major escalation in North American trade relations as the United States moves to impose massive new tariffs on Canadian goods. We are also looking at the latest from the United Kingdom, where a slight reprieve in government borrowing is being met by a controversial new subsidy for household energy bills. In North America, the landscape of trade is shifting rapidly. The Trump administration has announced it will impose 50% tariffs on a wide range of Canadian imports, including items like wine, cement, dairy, and even hockey sticks. The White House has framed these levies as a direct retaliation for what it describes as unequal treatment of American automobiles, dairy, and alcohol products. This move represents a significant departure from previous trade norms, because a recent Supreme Court ruling limited the president's ability to use emergency powers for global tariffs. The administration is instead utilizing Section 338 of the 1930 Trade Act. This legal maneuver allows the U.S. to bypass the protections previously established under the USMCA Trade Pact, which the United States has not renewed. While several critical sectors are currently being spared, including energy products, potash, fish, and critical minerals. The scope of these new taxes is broad. The administration argues that these tariffs will bolster American manufacturing and create jobs. But economists are warning of a different outcome, a potential spike in consumer prices as companies pass the costs of these imports onto the public. There is also a significant window of uncertainty regarding how long this standoff will last. The tariffs are set to take effect in 30 days, but the current legal and diplomatic framework could trigger a new set of negotiations that run all the way until 2036. In Canada, the response is divided. Prime Minister Mark Carney has confirmed he has spoken with President Trump, noting that while both leaders have agreed to intensify trade talks, Canada is prepared to weigh all options in its response. On the provincial level, Ontario Premier Doug Ford has taken a harder line, suggesting that Canada should respond with its own retaliatory tariffs. Even within the United States, the move has met resistance. Leaders from the hospitality sector, including the CEO of the Distilled Spirits Council, are calling for a negotiated solution to avoid damaging the American businesses that rely on these imports. Moving to the United Kingdom, the latest fiscal data provides a momentary, if complicated, reprieve for the government. In June, UK government borrowing came in at £16 billion. That is slightly lower than the £16.3 billion forecasted by the Office for Budget Responsibility, and it marks a significant drop of nearly £8 billion compared to the same period last year. However, the broader picture remains heavy. Total borrowing for the current financial year has already reached £57.6 billion, which is £2.7 billion above what was forecasted. Public sector net debt is now approaching £3 trillion, a figure that is nearly equivalent to the entire annual value of the UK economy. While debt interest payments have actually fallen to £11.8 billion, aided by higher revenues from income tax and VAT, market reaction remains nervous. Following recent comments from the Prime Minister regarding fiscal flexibility, 10-year government bond yields have risen above the 5% mark. Amidst these high-level debt concerns, the government is also moving forward with a targeted cost of living measure. Starting in October, VAT on household electricity bills will be cut from 5% to zero. The government expects this to save a typical household about £45 a year through March of 2027. To fund this £850 million initiative, ministers are redirecting money from the recently cancelled Digital ID programme. This decision has drawn sharp criticism from opposition figures, including Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride and former Chief Secretary Darren Jones. Both have questioned the funding, with Stride arguing that the move is essentially smoke and mirrors, noting that the Digital ID budget was never fully secured in previous estimates. There is also debate over whether this measure is actually sufficient. While the government expects the cut to lower inflation by about 0.1 percentage points, groups like the End Fuel Poverty Coalition argue that the relief is too small to address the scale of the cost of living crisis, especially as geopolitical tensions in the Middle East threaten to keep global energy supplies constrained through the winter. When you step back and look at both the North American trade escalation and the UK's fiscal manoeuvring, you can see a similar struggle playing out in both places: the clash between populist or protectionist policies and the need for global economic stability. As trade barriers rise in the West and national budgets in Europe try to balance immediate relief with long-term debt, it leaves us with a central question: will these policy shifts actually stabilize domestic industries, or will they simply fuel a new era of global inflation and uncertainty?